Most people hear the word SPAC and do one of two things. They either chase whatever merger rumor is trending on Reddit that week, or they write the whole thing off as a Wall Street gimmick. Both reactions cost money. The investors who actually profit from SPACs aren't the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones who understand the structure well enough to decide exactly when to get in and when to walk away. Today, we're going over three distinct strategies: pre-merger arbitrage, merger announcement momentum, and warrant leverage, each with a completely different risk and return profile. One of them lets you collect bond-like returns while holding what's essentially a free lottery ticket on the upside. And most retail investors have never even heard of it. By the end of this video, you'll know which approach fits your risk tolerance and exactly what to look for before you put a single dollar in.
But first, this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. Trading and Investing Hub is not a licensed financial advisor. Please do your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
A SPAC, or a special purpose acquisition company, is a shell company. It has no products, no customers, no revenue. It goes public through a standard IPO, raises a pile of cash, and has one job: find a private company worth merging with and take it public. That merger process is called a De-SPAC. And the management team running the whole operation, the sponsors, are the only thing you're actually betting on before a deal gets announced. Here's where it gets interesting. That IPO cash doesn't just sit in a bank account. Nearly all of it goes into what's essentially a Wall Street escrow, a protected trust invested in T-bills. The sponsors can't touch it to pay their own expenses, can't redirect it, can't deploy it until a deal closes or the SPAC winds down. The money is yours until you agree to let it go somewhere. When you invest at the IPO stage, you're not buying a plain share. You're buying a unit priced at $10 that contains one share of common stock plus a fraction of a warrant, usually half or a third of one. About 52 days after the IPO, those units split apart and trade separately. And this is the first moment most retail investors miss. Once they separate, you can trade the shares and warrants independently, which means you can position around a deal announcement in ways institutional money can't always replicate cleanly. The share trades like any other stock. The warrant trades on its own, and that's where the leverage lives. A warrant gives you the right to buy the stock at $11.50 later. Right now, before any deal is announced, it might cost you $1 or $2 on the open market. If the merger target turns out to be a high-growth company and the stock runs, that cheap warrant can multiply several times over. And then there's the redemption, right? The feature that separates SPACs from almost every other investment structure. When a merger gets announced, you get a vote. Don't like the deal? You hand your shares back and pull your $10 plus whatever interest accrued from those T-bills straight out of the Wall Street escrow. No questions asked. That floor is what makes the pre-merger period so unusual. SPACs also give private companies something a traditional IPO can't: speed and certainty. A standard IPO takes 12 months or more, and the final price gets set the night before listing based on whatever mood the market's in. With a SPAC, the company negotiates a valuation directly with the sponsor and locks it in early. They can also use forward-looking financial projections in their pitch, something a traditional IPO process doesn't allow. That's exactly why story stocks in electric vehicles, fintech, and AI have historically gravitated toward this path. The narrative drives the valuation before the numbers can. Now that the mechanics make sense, here's how you actually make money. Because the three strategies carry very different risk profiles, and picking the wrong one for your situation is how most retail investors get burned. Strategy one is pre-merger arbitrage, and this is the one most people have never heard of. You buy units or shares in the secondary market at or below NAV. That's the current per share cash value sitting in the trust, which starts at $10 and ticks upward as the T-bills earn interest. Then you hold. The trust keeps compounding and you wait for a deal to get announced. When it does, the market reacts. If investors love the target, the stock can jump well above $10. You sell into that excitement and pocket the gain. If the market shrugs or hates the deal, you simply redeem your shares directly from the trust at full NAV. You get your money back plus the interest. That's the bond with a lottery ticket structure. Heads you win, tails you don't lose. The only real risk here is opportunity costs. Your capital is tied up and could have been elsewhere. For anyone new to SPACs or any conservative investor, this is the entry point. Strategy two is merger announcement momentum, and the risk profile is completely different. Before we go further, if you think you can just buy the hype and figure out the exit later, look at what happened to people who bought Churchill Capital Corp. for at $57. That stock ran from its $10 NAV on nothing but Lucid Motors rumors. No deal announced, no financials, just speculation. When the merger was officially confirmed and the real production numbers came out, 557 vehicles planned, not 6,000. It collapsed. Anyone who bought near the top lost the majority of their money with no NAV floor to catch them. That's the structure of this strategy. Once a deal gets announced, retail frenzies can push the stock far above cash value. And the goal is to ride that wave early and exit before the merger closes, because once dilution hits and real data replaces the hype, prices fall fast. You're buying at a premium to the Wall Street escrow, so if sentiment flips, there's nothing underneath you. Fast decisions and strict exit discipline aren't optional here, they're survival requirements. Strategy 3 is warrant leverage, and this is where the math gets genuinely compelling for investors who've already done their homework on a specific deal. You buy warrants on the open market, often for just $1 or $2 each. The exercise price is $11.50, so if the stock moves from $12 to $18, that's a 50% move on the shares. But the warrant's intrinsic value jumps from 50 cents to $6.50, a 1,200% gain on the same underlying move. Put that in dollar terms, $10,000 in shares on that move returns $5,000 in profit. The same $10,000 spread across warrants at $1 each returns $60,000 on the same price move. Same stock, same merger, completely different outcome. That's the wealth window warrants open, and why the position sizing discipline matters just as much as picking the right deal. The risks are real though. If the stock never clears $11.50 before the warrant expires, you lose everything you put in. And if the stock trades above roughly $18 for a sustained stretch, the company can force early redemption, essentially capping your upside right when things are going well. This strategy belongs in the hands of investors who've already screened the sponsor carefully and believe in the deal. It's not for speculation on an unknown team. Knowing the 3 strategies gets you halfway there. The other half is knowing which SPACs are worth applying them to, because a brilliant strategy attached to a bad sponsor is still a loss. Before any deal is announced, there's no business to analyze, no revenue, no margins, no product roadmap. What you're actually evaluating is the management team. Sponsor quality is the entire investment thesis at the pre-deal stage, and the market already knows this. In the first quarter of 2025, roughly 80% of new SPAC IPOs came from serial sponsors, teams that have done this before. That's not a coincidence. Investors have gotten more selective, and the ones drawing capital are proven operators with track records you can actually verify. So verify them. Pull up their previous SPACs and ask 2 questions. Did they complete a deal? And how did the stock trade 12 to 24 months after the merger closed? A sponsor who consistently closes deals that crater post-merger isn't someone you want running your blank check. That history is public, it's searchable, and skipping that check is how retail investors end up holding the bag. Once you've cleared the sponsor screen, open the S1 filing on SEC's Edgar database on its website. Think of this as your sponsor red flag checklist, because the S1 is where sponsors quietly bury the math that dilutes you, and most retail investors never check it. 3 numbers matter most. First, warrant coverage per unit, half versus a third of a warrant changes your upside meaningfully. Second, the founders share promote. Sponsors typically take 20% of post-IPO equity for next to nothing, and that dilution is locked in before any deal is announced. Third, the target sector, verify it actually matches the sponsor's operational background, not just their stated interest. If those 3 numbers don't look clean, move on. Here's the number that should stop most retail investors cold. Research from Stanford and Yale found the median SPAC holds only $5.70 to $6.67 in real cash per share by merger time, against a $10 face value. That gap is the structural cost of the whole vehicle, and it gets absorbed by whoever's still holding shares through the close. This is why post-merger buy and hold has such a poor track record historically. The dilution headwinds are massive, and most de-SPAC companies never overcome them. New SEC rules that took effect in July 2024 also changed the risk equation for target companies. Their executives now carry the same legal liability as a traditional IPO, and the safe harbor that once protected aggressive revenue forecast is gone. Hockey stick projections are a much riskier play for companies now, which means they're a much cleaner red flag for investors to spot and avoid. For research, SPACresearch.com and SPACinsider.com track every active deal with key metrics. When buying warrants specifically, use limit orders. They're less liquid than shares, and a market order can eat into your position before the trade settles. So here's where you stand. Pre-merger arbitrage gives you capital protection with lottery ticket upside, the lowest risk entry into this market. Merger announcement momentum is a short time horizon, high risk trade that requires an exit plan before you buy in. Warrant leverage gives you amplified returns on a deal you've already conviction screened, with real downside if the stock never clears $11.50. The honest reality is that buying and holding post-merger is where most retail investors lose money. The dilution math doesn't lie, and the historical underperformance of de-SPAC companies is well documented. After this video, go to SPAC Research, find one active pre-deal SPAC, and run the sponsor check we just walked through. Track record, sector fit, warrant coverage. That single exercise will teach you more than an hour of reading. If this helped, hit the like button and subscribe for more trading and investing resources. And drop a comment below to suggest a topic to break down next.
The illest ciphers open, no joking. Trading and Investing Hub. Yeah, that's the spot. We teach you how to get the capital and make the profits bubble up. Trading and Investing Hub.